If the child I raised for 5 years now points a knife at my chest, and what did all my sacrifices mean? Series 1, Marrying My Sister's Husband. Chapter 1. After my sister died, I married her husband, Nick Ambrose. That made me the stepmom to my 5-year-old nephew, Jayden Ambrose. On my birthday, I accidentally wore one of my late sister's dresses. In front of everyone, 5-year-old Jayden threw my birthday cake straight into my face. He looked down at me, covered in frosting, with the same cold and motionless stare as his father. "Don't think you can replace my mom just because you married into the Ambrose family," he sneered. "You gold-digging tramp." Then his voice dropped into something darker, hateful. "I wish it had been you who died. Then we'd be lighting candles for your memorial, not your damn birthday. I swear, when I grow up, the first thing I'm doing is kicking you out of this house." The cake, overly sweet with extra frosting, slid toward the corner of my mouth, but all I tasted was bitterness. I stared at the little boy I had raised with my own hands, and strangely, I just felt done. If a child doesn't love you, maybe it's time to let go. But after I left, both Nick and Jayden came crawling back, full of regret, begging me to forgive them. "Aria, are you sure about divorcing Nick?" Mrs. Fusco asked me over the phone, her voice full of concern. "Jayden's still so young. He needs you." I stood at the stove, one hand braced on the counter, and replied calmly, "I married Nick because of the agreement. Jayden's 5 now, he can take care of himself. He doesn't need me anymore." I owed Mrs. Fusco a huge debt. To repay her kindness, I agreed to a 5-year marriage contract. 5 years of playing house, acting like the perfect Ambrose wife, taking care of Nick and his son. But the contract ends tomorrow. I'm finally free. Before she could respond, I felt a sharp sting on my forehead. Something hard hit me. A rock clattered onto the tiled floor. My hands flew up to cover the gash. Blood trickled down my face as I turned to see Jayden standing just outside the window. His arms were crossed, eyes narrowed with disdain. "Snitching to Grandma again? Looks like that little lesson I gave you wasn't enough. I should be sending you to the ground. Keep my mama company." I stared at him, stunned, as everything from an hour ago came rushing back. It was my 25th birthday. I'd never celebrated one before, so I treated myself to a small cake. But I accidentally wore my late sister's dress, and the sight of it sent Jayden into a rage. He snatched the cake and scrawled "RIP" across it with black paint. Then, for the final touch, he stuck white chrysanthemums on top, flowers meant for the dead. My birthday cake had turned into a funeral offering. He laughed, delighted with his work. "You think you deserve a birthday? If it weren't for you, my mom wouldn't be dead, and would have a broken family. Remember this, from now on, today isn't your birthday, it's your death day." Then, with everyone watching, he slammed the cake into my face and ruined the only day I'd been looking forward to. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just walked to the kitchen in silence. He followed me in, angry that I hadn't reacted. Jayden wasn't satisfied. "What, you upset now? You're so petty," he snapped. "I swear, when I grow up, the first thing I'm doing is kicking you out of this house." I looked at him, this child I'd poured 5 years of love and energy into, and felt my heart sink. I was so tired. "You won't need to," I told him quietly. "I'm leaving this house tomorrow." Then I walked out and went to the living room to clean up the wound on my forehead. I was bandaging my bleeding forehead when I heard the shattering of glass from upstairs. A chill ran down my spine. I ran up the stairs and found the only keepsake my mother had left me, a jade bracelet smashed into glittering pieces. The shards sparkled under the light, stabbing into my heart. I dropped to my knees and picked them up one by one, careful not to cut myself. I hadn't cried when Nick's parent gave me hell for years. I hadn't cried when Nick treated me like a stand-in for my sister, using me for stress relief and never anything more. I didn't even cry when Jayden publicly humiliated me with the cake. But now, looking at the broken bracelet my mom left me, I broke. The tears came fast, hot and out of control. That bracelet was the last thing I had from someone who truly loved me. Jayden stood nearby, watching me crumble. Then he smirked. Hurts, doesn't it? Having the one thing you care about destroyed? That's what you get for killing my mom. Now I'll destroy everything you care about. Murderer. That's when I finally lost it. I grabbed him by the arm and dragged him forward. You pick all the pieces up now and put them back together. Shock flashed in his eyes, probably because he had never seen me in such state. But before he could react, a hand shoved me hard, sending me back to the ground. What the hell is wrong with you? Nick glared at me with bloodshot eyes. It's just a bracelet. How could you go off on a kid over it? I sat there on the floor, stunned, staring up at the man I'd once vowed to love. To him it was just a cheap piece of jewelry, but to me it was a treasure, the most priceless thing in the world. 10 years ago, there was an earthquake in my hometown. My mother died protecting me. She used her body to shield me from falling concrete. The cement slab pierced right through her. I lost her that day. Mrs. Fusco found me years later when I was 15, paid for my schooling, gave me a future. That's how I ended up here. Nick must have realized he'd gone too far. He pushed Jayden out of the room and closed the door. He came over, lifted me from the floor, and laid me down on the bed, gently brushing away my tears. I thought you were more mature than this, he said softly. You shouldn't be lashing out at a kid. You owe Jayden an apology. Then he leaned down and started unbuttoning my blouse. It's your birthday. Let me make it up to you. Consider it a reward for everything you've done for this family. I inhaled sharply and pushed his hand away. Nick, I said, voice calm but firm, I want a divorce. Chapter 2. Jayden throws tantrums and now you too? Nick's face twisted in frustration. He's just a kid, but you're an adult. Why can't you try to understand him? Once he grows up, he'll get it. I'm tired from work. Stop adding to my stress, okay? I don't have the energy to deal with you. I wanted to tell him I didn't need him to fix anything. Just listen. But to Nick, everything I said sounded like complaint. His eyes turned cold, all traces of desire gone. I've got work to do, he muttered, storming out and slamming the door behind him. I'm not sleeping with you tonight. I didn't even bother counting how many times he'd left me like that. At this point, I was nothing more than a convenient toy to him, there when he wanted me, invisible when he didn't. But after tonight, I wouldn't be anyone's toy anymore. I spent the whole night at the table, carefully trying to glue my mother's bracelet back together. It was hopeless, of course. Jade doesn't mend easy. But I still tried. All I had was some cheap superglue and a prayer. By the time I looked out the window, the sun was up. Mrs. Fusco had sent me a message asking me to come over. I threw on a coat and went. She was sitting in the living room when I arrived, her face tight with worry. When she saw me, she sighed. I heard about what happened yesterday. Jayden's a lot like his dad, stubborn and hard to handle. But you raised him, Arya. There has to be some part of him that cares about you. Give him time. He'll understand one day. Then she looked me in the eyes. Are you really ready to walk away from the family you've built all these years? Her words gave me pause. But can it still be called a family if there's no love left in it? My thoughts drifted back to the late Gianna. Gianna and Nick had been inseparable since childhood, best friends, sweethearts, soulmates. They grew up side by side, went through every phase of life together, and eventually got married. They were the kind of couple people looked at with envy. Until 5 years ago, when Gianna died suddenly. Nick was never the same after that. It was like half of him had died with her. He walked around like an empty shell, neglecting even his most basic needs, and that included their young son. Mrs. Fusco was worried sick. She didn't want Jayden to grow up without a mother's love. But she couldn't just trust anyone to fill that role. She was terrified some random woman would ruin everything. So one day she came to me with a proposal, marry Nick, raise Jayden, and be a mother figure to her only grandson. In the past 5 years, I gave everything I had to keep the Fusco household running like clockwork. I raised Jayden into the golden boy everyone admired. I even took on Nick's emotional mess, trying to make life easier for him. But no matter what I did, it never earned me a sliver of their love. To Nick, I was nothing more than a warm body, someone he turned to only when desire hit. The rest of the time, I might as well have been invisible. As for Jayden, he hated me. Because of a few words from outsiders gossiping about me, he hated me with every fiber of his being. Every time he looked at me, it was like he was willing me to die. How could that situation fit to ever be called a family? Mrs. Fusco eventually gave up, trying to talk me out of leaving. Instead, she handed me the divorce papers and told me that once I signed, I'd finally be free. I couldn't contain the excitement bubbling inside me. I signed the papers without hesitation. By the time I got home that night, it was already dark. I tried using my key, but the lock had been changed. Confused, I knocked on the door, but no one answered. Just as I was about to call the housekeeper, Jayden walked out with his arms crossed, eyes filled with disgust. "Oh, look who finally decided to come home. Why didn't you just drop dead somewhere? Then you wouldn't have to cook for me and Dad anymore." He was mad that I hadn't made his meals today. Jayden's got a picky stomach and a delicate palate. Hardly anyone could cook food he actually liked, and that wouldn't upset him. That's why I'd even taken culinary classes, just to learn how to prepare meals that suited him. Back then, he used to hug me and smile, saying, "Mommy, you're the best chef in the whole world. I want to eat your food forever." But somewhere along the way, everything changed. Now all he wanted was for me to disappear. Suddenly, thunder cracked across the sky and rain poured down without warning. Within seconds, I was drenched to the bone. I had nowhere to hide. I looked up and spoke gently. "Jayden, can I please come inside? I'll catch a cold if I stay out here." He sneered. "You think I care? You wanted to be out so bad. Why don't you just stay out?" "Jayden, who are you talking to?" a woman's voice called sweetly from inside. Valentina Burns walked over in sky-high heels and wrapped her arms around Jayden's shoulders like they belonged to each other. When she saw me, she couldn't hold back a laugh. "Oh, it's you. Sorry, sweetheart, but Nick said he'd be spending the night with me today. Guess you'll have to sleep outside." Then she turned to Jayden. "Come on, Jayden. Dinner's ready. Your dad's waiting for us." "Yay. I love eating with you, Aunt V." Jayden beamed and took her hand. "You're the best." Chapter 3. I watched them walk back inside, their silhouettes warm and close. My chest ached. The boy I raised, the one I poured every ounce of my heart into, couldn't see a thing I'd done for him. Instead, he clung to a hostess Nick brought home just because she looked a little like Gianna. It was too late to find a cab, and the rain kept getting heavier. I curled up in the corner by the gate like some stray dog, trying to shield myself from the downpour. Just when I thought I'd have to sit there all night, the door opened. The housekeeper stepped out with an umbrella. "Madam, Mr. Fusco said you can come in." My mind was half frozen, but I managed a nod and dragged myself inside. The first thing I saw was Jayden curled up in Valentina's lap, watching TV, while Nick peeled fruit beside them. They looked like the picture-perfect family. I ignored them and headed upstairs, but Nick stopped me. "You know Jayden's stomach can only handle food you make. From now on, don't stay out for more than an hour." I gave a cold, tired smile and said calmly, "Then you better hire a professional nutritionist soon. Or maybe have Miss Burns learn the recipes. I've got them written down. We'll be divorced soon, remember." A sharp clang rang out. Nick had slammed the fruit knife onto the plate, the sound grating. "Aria, have I been too soft with you? Is that why you think you can talk to me like this?" He pushed back his chair and marched over to me, grabbing my wrist in a bruising grip. "You throw the word divorce around like it means nothing? You really think I won't go through with it?" "Of course he would. Why wouldn't he? He never loved me. Not really. The only reason he hadn't divorced me already was because of Jayden. He wanted his son to believe he still had a perfect little family. I stayed calm, looked him dead in the eye. Then maybe you should just ask Jayden if he even wants me around. Ask him if he cares whether we stay together. Right on cue, Jayden's voice cut through the room, dripping with disdain. Dad, I've been wanting you to divorce her for years. I hate her. I like Aunt V better. Valentina hurriedly covered his mouth. Jayden, honey, you can't say things like that. It'll hurt your mom. She said the right words, sure, but the sparkle of excitement in her eyes betrayed her true feelings. She's not my mom. I don't want to murder her as my mother, Jayden shouted, glaring at me with hatred. I shrugged at Nick and said dryly, There, you heard him. He doesn't want me around. Can we finally get divorced now? Nick's brows furrowed. He turned to Valentina. Valentina, take Jayden downstairs. Valentina hesitated, disappointment flashing in her eyes, but she nodded and led Jayden away. I looked at her retreating figure and said again, You and Jayden both like her. Why don't you make her Mrs. Fusco instead? I'm done with the title. You're really that eager to throw me at another woman? His voice was low, dangerous. I stared at him, genuinely confused. What did he even mean by that? He loved Gianna. Everyone knew it. Even after 5 years since her death, he never moved on. He'd never looked at me with affection. I was just a stand-in, someone he used when his body needed something, nothing more. And now, he'd finally found Valentina, someone who looked so much like Gianna it was eerie. Shouldn't he be thrilled? But instead of answering, his expression darkened. He turned abruptly and barked over his shoulder. Valentina, come back. She peeked back in, surprised. Before she could ask anything, Nick grabbed her wrist and dragged her down the hall. You want to see us together, Aria? He snapped. Fine. I'll give you what you want. And with that, he yanked her into the bedroom and slammed the door. Not long after, the sounds of moaning slipped through the walls. I felt nothing. I'd never come to this house for love. I came to repay a debt. That was it. I never let my heart get involved, never expected anything more than cold indifference. Nick had always loved Gianna, and now he'd found someone who mirrored her so perfectly it was almost grotesque. Valentina was his second chance, a living, breathing shadow of the woman he'd never stopped grieving. He should be happy. I checked the time. My flight was leaving soon. Quietly, I slid the divorce agreement under his door, picked up my suitcase, and headed downstairs. But just as I reached the front door, Jayden stepped in front of me, blocking my path. With one sharp kick, he knocked over my suitcase. What, a couple harsh words and now you're storming out? His voice was dripping with contempt. You think this little act will get my dad's attention? That he'll come chasing after you like some movie scene? You're pathetic. I didn't say a word. I just bent down, calmly picked up my suitcase, and started walking around him. Then, out of nowhere, Jayden grabbed the fruit knife from the table and lunged. It came at me fast, knife angled right toward my chest, his face twisted with anger. The boy I raised now holds a knife to my chest. Should I see him as my son or my executioner? I saved his life once, but 10 years later he repaid me with obsession, cruelty, and blood. Chapter 1. 10 years ago, I saved a drowning boy. I conducted a rapid rescue on him. After waking up, he told me, I have decided to marry you when I grow up. Thinking that he was joking, I didn't take his words seriously. 10 years later, the boy grew up, becoming a crazy and domineering CEO whose name was Brian Hawk. At my wedding with my fiancé, he led a group of people and beat up my fiancé, forcibly taking me away. I told you I would marry you. Your husband can only be me. He threatened me with my whole family's lives and forced me to marry him. He imprisoned me in a private villa, allowing no man to be in touch with me. To win me over, he tried every means, but I remained unmoved. He became furious and found someone who was 90% like me to replace me. Relying on his affection and favoritism, the substitute, Ariel Berg, did whatever she wanted and broke into the villa where I lived. Where did this cheap woman come from? How dare she pretend to be me and seduce my man? I will tear you apart today. She stripped me naked, cut off my tongue, and ordered the bodyguards to ravage and humiliate me. Only after I was tortured to death did Brian arrive late. Ariel dragged my body to the front of Brian, who was overbearing. She proudly said, "Darling, this woman who had done plastic surgery wanted to hide here and seduce you. I killed her for you." Brian Hawk was infatuated and crazy. According to him, right from the moment I saved him, he decided to marry no one else but me. To win me over, he imprisoned me for 3 years and tried every means to please me every day. But I, who didn't love him at all, couldn't accept him. Recently he got a substitute who looked like me. The two of them had been getting along affectionately for several months. To provoke me, Brian often forwarded me videos showing how ambiguous they were on WhatsApp. As I was sitting in the courtyard and enjoying their videos, there was a sudden burst of noise outside. "Brian comes here every few days. Today I want to see what kind of treasures are hidden in this villa." But didn't Mr. Hawk say that this villa was his private restricted area and no one was allowed to come here? Yes, Ariel, I heard that someone took a glance inside the villa before. Mr. Hawk broke his hands and dug out his eyes. Isn't it inappropriate for us to sneak in without his permission? What are you afraid of? Brian dotes on me to the bone. He won't blame me. Listening to the noisy sound outside the courtyard, I frowned slightly and felt uneasy. I knew better than anyone about how crazy Brian was. He had strong possessiveness, treating me as his private possession and imprisoning me in this villa. Someone once had sneaked into my villa out of curiosity and taken a glance at me. Brian disabled his hands and feet, digging out his eyes. The next day, the man vanished into the void. At first, he was only jealous of other men. Later, he realized that I, who had never been gentle to him, treated the housemaid gently. He dismissed all the housemaids in a fit of anger. He would rather personally deliver daily meals to me than let anyone else do it. Except him, no one else could look at me in my eyes for a moment. If those people outside the courtyard come in, they may be in big trouble. I quickly got up and intended to remind them to leave here as soon as possible. As soon as the door opened, someone who looked almost the same as me came into my view. Before I could say something, she slapped me hard across my face. Where did this cheap woman come from? How dare she disguise herself as me and hide in Brian's villa? Do you want to compete with me for a man? Chapter 2. She hit me with a sudden slap, making my face burn with pain. You cheap woman who did plastic surgery. Do you know where you are? How dare you barge in here without the owner's permission? You deliberately made yourself look like Ariel to seduce Mr. Hawk. You let go of your dignity to climb up the ladder, right? At this moment, I finally realized that the person who had suddenly come in and attacked me was Ariel Berg, the substitute who Brian had found. Because of Brian's pathological desire for control, I had always been indifferent towards him. Even though I was forced to marry him, I treated him indifferently. I never let him touch me. Perhaps out of resentment, or to make up for his regrets, he searched everywhere for someone who resembled me. Ariel Berg was the substitute he had found, who resembled me the most. At this moment, Ariel, looking furious, looked at me with overwhelming resentment. You slut. You know that Brian is hopelessly in love with me, so you try every means to make yourself look like me. You want to replace me as my double, don't you? Ariel was arrogant and flamboyant. Since she doesn't know the truth, I don't intend to argue with her about why she slapped me. Instead, I kindly advised her. You shouldn't be here. Before Brian arrives, leave here quickly, otherwise no one can help you. However, Ariel didn't appreciate my kindness at all. Instead, she grabbed my hair angrily and said, Brian is my man. I can wander around everywhere in his territory. You're planning to drive me away. After all, you're afraid that I, the rightful owner, will ruin your scheme and leave you with no chance to be a mistress, right? Today I will make you know the consequences of stealing my man." After saying that, Ariel kicked me to the ground. I stumbled onto the rocks. My forehead instantly cracked open. I touched the blood on my forehead and looked at the imposing Ariel. I said indifferently, "Aren't you afraid that Brian will find out about your reckless behavior?" Ariel sneered disdainfully. "I am the destined love that Brian has been searching for a long time. Even if I have a little scratch on my face, he will be so worried about me and make himself restless for a few days. Even if he knows about what I did, so what? Will he blame me because of you, an insignificant person?" Several of Ariel's friends sneered and echoed. "Exactly. Everyone knows that Mr. Hawk fell in love with Ariel at first sight. How can you, her imitator who did plastic surgery, compare to her? Ariel is Mr. Hawk's distinguished identity. There must be many seductive women like this bitch trying to seduce him. Today we happen to make her an example and scare them off. Then we can cut off the crooked thoughts of those seductive bitches. Yes, we will let those despicable women who want to climb the social ladder know who the real Mrs. Hawk is." All of them each spoke sharp words and looked fierce. They were eager to tear me apart. I looked serious and indifferently said, "You'd better ask Brian to find out who I am." Ariel raised her chin and looked disdainful. "Do you, a plastic surgery woman who sneaked into the villa, deserve me to inquire about your identity? I am Brian's favorite. The Berg family is the biggest partner of the Hawk family. Who the hell are you? Are you qualified to show off your status against mine?" As she said, she looked fierce and ordered several of her best friends behind her. "Strip this bitch naked. I want to see if she can make her body look exactly like mine." Hearing this, her best friends immediately rushed over and violently tore off my clothes. While I was desperately preventing them from stripping my clothes, I shouted, "Stop it. I am Brian's wife." Chapter 3. Hearing what I said, they immediately stopped what they were doing. Ariel stood aside, squinting at me. "You said you were Brian's wife?" I said seriously, "Yes, you are a substitute he found. If he knows that you hurt me like this, he will not let you go." I thought that Ariel would thus retreat after I revealed the truth. Unexpectedly, they burst into laughter almost at the same time. "This bitch, she that eager to take my place?" Relying on the fact that she looks somewhat similar to Ariel, she dares to say that Ariel is her substitute? Everyone knows that Mr. Hawk always takes Ariel with him wherever he goes. You, a sneaky plastic surgery woman, dare to call yourself Mr. Hawk's wife? On the other hand, Ariel smiled viciously. "I thought you would be something. After all, you disguise yourself as me to seduce Brian. I didn't expect you to be a brainless idiot." "I've been with Brian for so long. I didn't even know he had a wife. Are you that bold? How dare you tell such an outrageous lie? If you were the real Mrs. Hawk, how could you live alone in this desolate villa without anyone knowing it?" After saying that, Ariel snorted and ordered her several girlfriends. "Continue to strip her clothes. Leave nothing behind." Upon hearing this, her best friends did not hesitate as they violently tore off my clothes. None of them knew the reason why no one was around this villa. Brian bought all this large piece of land. No one can come here without his permission. Originally, bodyguards and maids were living here. Because of Brian's jealousy, he dismissed everyone. He doesn't announce my identity to the public so that others won't take an extra glance at me. Even if they are discussing things related to me, he will feel it's blasphemy against me. I never expected that all Brian had done to me would become the reason why they had doubts about my identity. Seeing my clothes being torn to pieces, I panicked and shouted, "I am Brian's wife. If you don't believe me, call him." After hearing what I said, they became even more fierce. They didn't stop what they were doing. While tearing off my clothes frantically, they slapped me in the face. You damn bitch! Do you dare to lie? Let's see how we will wake you up today. Soon my face turned red and swollen. I was disheveled. With my clothes barely covering me, a lot of skin on my body was exposed. Seeing this, Ariel narrowed her eyes and said gently, "This bitch's hair is too annoying. It's hindering her from showing off her body." As she said that, she revealed an evil smile and took out a lighter. She set my hair on fire. The fire quickly spread on my head. An intense burning sensation engulfed me. For a moment, my cheeks, ears, and entire scalp felt a burst of strong burning pain. The pain was unbearable. I instinctively tried to pat out the fire with my hands, but they firmly held me down. In the blink of an eye, my hair was all burned. My scalp was covered in burn marks. At my look, Ariel laughed with satisfaction. "It's funny. With your bald and ugly face, how are you going to seduce men in the future?" Her several close friends laughed and applauded. I stared at them, trembling all over. Then I shouted, "You will regret this." Brian threatened me with the lives of my entire family. I had been imprisoned for many years. I stayed at the empty villa in a daze day after day. It made me even more frustrated. Now I had to endure Ariel's torment. The anger in my heart instantly turned into intense hatred. Ariel walked up to me and stepped heavily on my face with her foot. "How dare you challenge me? Since what you say will always displease me, you shouldn't speak anymore. Cut off this bitch's tongue." Chapter 4. With her command, one of Ariel's bodyguards behind her walked towards me with a dagger in his hands. Seeing this, one of Ariel's best friends, who was timid, said fumblingly, "Ariel, this is Mr. Hawk's territory after all. Is it appropriate for us to make such a big scene?" Ariel said without hesitation, "What's wrong? Brian is my man. His house is my house. I'm just educating a shameless bitch in my home. Who dares to say anything to me? Besides, Brian loves me so much. Even if I kill this bitch, he won't frown at me." Her other girlfriends echoed. "That's right. Ariel is Mr. Hawk's most beloved woman. There's nothing she can't do. When the time comes, Mr. Hawk will only feel sorry for Ariel for exhausting herself from dealing with the bitch." Hearing their words, the timid girl no longer had any concerns. She watched the show with peace of mind. I lay on the ground watching the dagger in the bodyguard's hands. He was getting closer and closer to me. I was extremely frightened, shouting in panic, "I am indeed Brian's wife. If you do this, Brian will never let you go." However, my threats had no effect. The bodyguard came to me and extended a dagger towards me. I wanted to escape, but several of Ariel's best friends firmly held me down. I wanted to hide, but the dagger, shining with cold light, had deeply cut into my mouth. The bodyguard lifted his hand and stabbed at me with the dagger. In a daze, I saw a large amount of blood and my severed tongue falling from my mouth. The pain was extreme. I felt like all the nerves in my body were severed. I was about to faint. I was like a pile of mud, lying in a pool of blood. I couldn't move, and my breath was weak. Ariel stood with her arms crossed, looking down at me. She said, "Even though you had plastic surgery to make yourself look like me with your appearance, Brian would never take you seriously. He loves me as a person. Got it? Not everyone can live such a good life as me. Brian won't fall in love with any woman. Since you, a bitch, are so desperate for a man, I'll reward you with a few men." After saying that, she looked at the several bodyguards behind her. She said indifferently, "I'll give this bitch to you to play with. Whoever works the hardest on her, I'll reward them with $2 million. At Ariel's words, the bodyguards' eyes instantly lit up. They rubbed their hands eagerly and fiercely, planning to pounce on me. I collapsed on the ground without any strength to resist. I wanted to shout, but I had no tongue. My mouth was full of blood. I couldn't make a sound. I could only let them ravage me. Brian imprisoned me here obsessively. But he had never hurt me or touched me. Even if I didn't want to get close to him, he never forced himself on me. He said he would wait for the day when I was willing to give myself to him. He said I was destined to be his in this lifetime. But now I was overwhelmed by a group of bodyguards. I was helpless. Helplessness and despair engulfed me. I couldn't speak, crying uncontrollably. Brian, is this the result you want? A few of Ariel's best friends watched the show and praised Ariel. They said, Ariel is destined to be Mrs. Hawk. She is good at teaching others a lesson. Yes. See? This despicable woman was stubborn at first, but now she is made to cry. It's funny. She probably won't dare to seduce men anymore in the future. Congratulations to Ariel for successfully getting rid of a despicable bitch. Let's see who dares to compete with you for the position of Mrs. Hawk in the future. Ariel smiled victoriously and proudly as they praised her. The excited bodyguard suddenly looked strange. The next moment, a bodyguard stood up and pointed at me. He reported saying, Miss Berg, this woman is dead. Hearing this, Ariel frowned and looked disgusted. How unlucky! Bury her somewhere quickly in case she will stink Brian's eyes. As soon as she finished speaking, Brian walked into the courtyard. What are you doing? They thought they had buried me, but should I show them what happens when the dead return?